The Browns pulled off a miracle against the Packers in Week 3. Lance Reisland joins us for our weekly conversation to tell us how they did it. It's all coming up next in the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Lance Reisland is here. We do this weekly conversations with him every Tuesday as he breaks down some of the biggest plays from the Browns win. From the Browns win this weekend, but just week to week, he breaks down some of the biggest plays. And we'll also talk about some just overarching things as well at the end of the show, particularly things like, can momentum week to week carry over and lead to more wins? We'll get into all those things with Lance coming up. But first, I do want to thank you for being in every day here at the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Lance, it was not a pretty performance from the offense once again, but they did enough to get the win in the most miraculous way fashionable. I'm excited to talk about this one with you, and I know you really want to start with particularly honing in on some of the big run plays that the Browns were able to execute, which was probably the one thing that was a positive that came out of this game when it was all said and done.
Well, I'll tell you what, they did enough, and there's no such thing as an ugly win, right? A win is a win, a loss is a loss. So that's how I always look at it. You figure it out, you live to fight it. It's like the dance in March, survive in advance, and that's what it is. And you saw with the talent on this defense, and the defense is only going to get better. That if you don't turn the ball over, and I don't count, I'm an ex-quarterback, so I don't count Hail Marys as interceptions. So if you don't turn the ball over, you got a chance to be in every game. And that's what this defense can do for you. I think it's probably arguably the best defense in the league, especially with pressure. If they get one turnover, so they got one turnover to set up a short field, you see what that does for an offense, how it's affected the Browns defense. And if you just don't punt, I tell everybody, one of my favorite plays as I broke down the game was the first 3rd down and 7, middle of the field, they ran the ball. And I was didn't pick it up, and people were booing. I loved it because they punted it deep. And my thing is, if the Browns can be smart on 3rd and long, 2nd and long, and protect Joe Flacco from himself and some of those turnovers. Now, they're going to have to start making some plays downfield. But in my opinion, in this game, your defense was so dominant that what they did was fine, and you find a way to win 2-0, 50-0. It's all the same. So I thought they ran the ball better. I saw a little bit more of Tommy Rees's influence with the run scheme, going more to this duo, this inside, straight ahead, double team kind of concept that Tommy Rees has kind of been known for, and kind of the in vogue thing now. It's very similar to inside zone, but Browns got better up front. Their tackles were a little bit better. And maybe in the run game a little bit better, but the inside guys are definitely getting better and getting back to their ability to move people off the ball.
Well, let's go. Let's pull up some the concept you're talking about here with Tommy Rees's influence, the duo sort of scheme that they ran. And this was specifically, you drew up for us what sort of sprung Quinshon on that 38-yard run late in the game. He had a 14-yard run prior to that you said was a very, very similar concept to this, essentially. So walk us through how this play sort of happened, and who's kind of responsible for what in terms of getting Quinshon to break free for the big gain that he had.
All right, so if you look at Quinshon, he's going to start to his left. So as he's going to his left, that's where the offensive linemen, they don't really care what numbers the linebackers are. They're looking for the number 1 linebacker in the box. So you see starting over with the receiver, which is Tillman, he's going to block 29 because he comes down from the safety. He's technically not in the box. So the 2 receivers, because the play is going left, you have the number 1 linebacker in the box, the number 2 linebacker in the box. Now, what's good about duo is that duo is straight ahead or vertical. So Judkins can go anywhere he wants. So if you start moving left to right, you have the left tackle. You have the tight end. He's going to man block, base block, and then it starts the double team. So you have a deuce double team. That's with the guard, the left guard, Bitonio, and that was Lucas. And they're going to double team the defensive tackle to the number 1 linebacker. Because that guy goes inside, right, they're responsible for those 2. So he goes inside hard on this play. Bitonio just takes him, and then Lucas goes right to the linebacker. On
Nice.
the other side, you get an ace double, which is between the center and the guard. And obviously that's going to be Posick and Teller. Now, because the play is going left, Teller doesn't get a huge double team here. He just kind of helps with his hand and makes sure that that defensive tackle doesn't penetrate. And he's going to the number 2 linebacker. And then obviously Livingston on the outside, he's actually going to pass set Rashawn Gary and allow him to go outside. Now, as this play goes along, it's actually interesting because he's going to start to the left and he's going to work himself all the way back to the right. And he's actually going to cut behind Batonio, who takes that number 95, who crosses his face and blocks him all the way down by the right tackle. And he's going to cut it all the way back. And the good thing with Judkins is he has great vision. And this duo is a great concept for him because he can literally go tackle to tackle here. And this is a Tommy Rees influence, and you see with movement and motion. But really, this is the concept on zone. This is the concept on a lot of gap schemes. You're getting double teams to the second level, and how you get there is kind of irrelevant. It's still a double team. It's still physicality. It's still vertically moving people off the ball. So this is the play that was a 14-yard run. This was also the 38-yard run. This duo. Sometimes he keeps it front side. On this particular play, he cuts it all the way back behind Teller, behind Batonio and Teller coming. And then he, obviously bends back to his left for a long run.
Yeah, I love that you highlighted this because this was something that obviously stood out, I think, to everybody was the fact that they could actually run the football effectively. And I love that you bring up Quinshon's vision because, Lance, I thought it was night and day what we saw the first 2 weeks from both Sampson and Jerome Ford. And no, it's no disrespect to them. Quinshon is just a different level of a player. And I thought he was every time he got the ball, whether it was a 3-yard gain or these 2 big run plays that you sort of mapped out for us here, it was like he would see the hole he wanted and he would hit it and he'd make a cut and he'd sometimes make a guy miss and he would just break it for whatever he broke it for. It's just there's a different level to his game that we didn't see the first couple weeks. And I thought it gave us some signs of life that maybe this offense can get back to doing the thing we thought they were going to be able to do well, which was running the football, and that could maybe spark something here for this offense to finally get in gear and be able to, score 20 points and do a little bit more than they've done to this point.
Well, Judkins is definitely different. And the thing that I like about Judkins is his ability, he's heavy. So he does all those things that a little back does, but he's you and I have been down there. He's a big, thick kid.
Yeah.
And that allows him to lean. Some of his best runs the other day were 3-yard runs. And the difference between 2nd and 7 and 2nd and 10 is huge on a call sheet because 2nd and 7, you still have run option to get to 3rd and medium. 2nd and 10, you got to throw the ball. And then that's when interceptions hit. I always tell people interceptions at the NFL level, the more film I watch is when they get they get you in automatic passing situations. Then they get exotic up front. They get exotic with the fronts, the coverages, the blitzes, all those things. So if you can make a defense play run and pass, they're in base. And that protects you from seeing things and missing things like the Browns did against Jordan Love for their interceptions. Really great scheme by Schwartz. So again, Judkins is just different, but I'll tell you what it does, Spencer, too. I think it allows Ford and Sampson to really be good at what they do. I think Sampson's going to be a great change of pace. And I think Ford, because he's a little bit bigger body, he becomes a really effective 3rd down back. He comes in fresh, he can pass protect, and he can throw. So I think it makes not only does Judkins is the feature bell cow back, but it makes those others 2, in my opinion, good at what they do. And then now the backfield's kind of complete.
Yeah, and I've kind of called Judkins like an eraser, and that if there's a mistake or a missed block or something, he's that back that can make a guy miss. Whereas I don't know that Ford and Sampson have the same ability to do that and then make a play out of it. Like he can turn something out of nothing, turn something into nothing. And I think that's something that's always impressed me about Judkins and why I loved him in the pre-draft process. Before we break here and then go to the defensive side, and I know you're going to highlight that interception, which everyone obviously loved. And I agree. I've already watched it back and seen some other people breaking it down. The way that Jim Schwartz disguises that play is brilliant. So we'll get into that here coming up. But I did want to ask, Lance, we saw at the end of the game that perfectly executed quick throw to Njoku with 12 seconds left, get the ball down, spike it. You're a former coach. You're an offensive coach at that. Just describe how difficult that is to execute, because with all the buzz about, the Browns should make a quarterback change and all these things, I actually thought it was that moment where having Flacco on the field paid off the most because it's a veteran guy who knew what he was doing, knew how to handle that situation, and they executed it brilliantly, and it obviously led to the game-winning field goal.
Well, they ran all slants, and Njoku's on a slant. They brought the middle backer. What defenses try to do when you don't have any timeouts and you're under 12 seconds? They're playing sideline defense, so they're literally trying to prevent you from catching the ball and getting out of bounds. So they have outside leverage. All those guys are trying to protect the sideline, and what it did was, you and I were there when they worked this situational stuff. This is a Stefanski attention to detail thing that I love. So as much as we get on him and I get on him about physicality at practice, this is what he does marvelously, right? So they have two different situations. One is you have to score and you have a timeout, or you don't have a timeout. If you don't have a timeout, we call it Mayday or emergency, where they got to run out, get a set, and kick it. Well, they had because it was only second down, they were able to spike it. So the Njoku ran a little inside slant. You got it to him. But the thing that was impressive is the clock play. And you work that all the time. And it's, I remember seeing it on the second day of camp when they were running, which is really early in my opinion. But it kind of, that's the things that Kevin do. And it is tough, but it's not tough if you practice it. It's just like a trick play. I tell everybody a trick play is not a trick play if you practice it, right? And everybody always argues with me because if you practice it, it's a normal play. And that's the same thing. So they will literally work that clock play. And I've seen Kevin in practice just out of nowhere say clock, clock, clock. And it just teaches those guys to sprint to the line of scrimmage. Everybody's got to be set and you clock it. And the hard part about that is making sure your whole team is set because you're in such a hurry. And Flacco, I agree with you. Having a veteran, he made sure everyone was set. They all got set down. Really well done with only 12 seconds left to get a 12-yard gain, middle of the field, and spike it. Incredibly well done. It tells you their attention to detail in practice.
Yeah, I thought that was an awesome play. Obviously set the stage for the epic ending to that one that we got. We'll talk about the Grant Delpit interception. Lance breaks that play down and a couple other things on the defensive side next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots delivered tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love the most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get the boost when you need it. Everyone knows it's pumpkin spice season. Everyone's walking around with their pumpkin spice lattes. Football's back. Fall is in the air. Well, now you can walk around with a brand new pumpkin spice flavored 5-hour energy shot, part of 3 new holiday themed flavors that they've debuted here recently for 2025. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with a 5-hour energy shot. Get your favorite flavor or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Back with Lance Reisland for our weekly conversation as he breaks down some of the big plays and moments from the Browns' win over the Green Bay Packers this week. And nothing that transpired at the end of that game, Lance, would have been made possible without the next play you're going to break down here. The Grant Delpit interception. I know I've seen some people break this play down already. I'm curious to see your sort of perspective on it too, because this was just, I'll put the play up here, but this was just brilliant from Jim Schwartz and the way that he disguised the coverage that the Browns are playing and then baited Jordan Love into the interception. And I know Packers fans were ripping their hair out because everyone since this game ended has said all they had to do was run the ball and punt because the Browns offense couldn't move the ball on them, but they decided to throw, and it obviously cost them dearly here. Let's talk through this one.
Well, obviously, I will tell you, watching this play, my first thought, it was like, wow, what is he looking at? And then I would say this without hesitation. I absolutely would have thrown this interception as well. I think a lot of people you talk to. So this first slide tells you what a quarterback is looking at and what I would be looking at when I come up. So the first thing I see press coverage across the board. Yeah. So you got Ward by himself. You got Delpit, who's on 3 strong, which was Kraft. You got Miles Harden on 2, which was Wicks, and then you got Newsome on the outside of that 3 receiver side. Now, as a quarterback, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the eyes on the receivers. I'm seeing the stack rule to my right side, which was Bush, and then on top of him, you had Hickman. Now that tells me that Bush is coming.
Yeah,
right.
I was gonna say that was one of the things I noticed when I watched this playback too, and I think you've told me that dozens of times, that if you see a stack as a quarterback, you're assuming that the front guy is coming, and that's why there's a stack. I picked up on that as well.
So you have man coverage across the board. You got a stack rule. You got no free safety in the middle of the field. So you're immediately thinking pressure. You're thinking zero coverage, and they're bringing 5 or 6. And obviously with Kraft, as we talked about last week, Kraft is a great seam runner, and they like to run them on seams from the 3 strong. So if you look at the 3 receiver side, 1 strong is the outside receiver, and then you count, going in 1 strong, 2 strong, 3 strong. So Kraft is at 3 strong. Now on the snap of the ball, right? On the snap of the ball, you're going to see Delpit. Delpit works, stays there. And Hickman on the other side is actually going to rotate, and they're going to run. They're going to run a banjo concept. Now, a banjo concept simply means it's a bracket concept, and there's tons of different ways. Lots of banjo against bunch formations. But what this is incredible film study. This is formation study. This is personnel study with Kraft. This is phenomenal by Schwartz, right? So if you think about, he's going to throw the slant to Wicks. At 2 strong, and Delpit's going to be there for the interception. However, as Kraft runs that vertical, Hickman comes from the other side to pick him up. Now, as a quarterback and you're at 3rd down, you love Wicks, especially on Miles Harden, and I think they all know that's where they were going.
Yeah.
So if you go one more slide, Sven.
Yep.
So now here's what the route you got. So you see Kraft. So let's just start on the right side. So on the other side, they run a little hitch. He could take that if he likes man. He decides his best matchup is Harden, which is the second.
Rightfully so. I mean, it's Denzel on the hitch, like you said, and then on the other side, it's Greg Newsome. And that slot spot has been where teams have exploited this Browns secondary. So I understand where you're going with this too.
So, Love is thinking right now. So if Love is thinking, man, they're all going to run with. So in his mind, Delpit is going to turn and run with Kraft. He thinks it's blitz. He thinks he's got an automatic shot, easy inside leverage. That's hard to cover for everybody. Harden's been struggling a little bit. So in theory, this is, exactly where he's going with the ball. This is exactly where I would go with the ball. Then all of a sudden they run it, and Delpit is he's in like a robber kind of, we call it whatever you want to call it. But basically he's a one-man zone over there reading the eyes of the quarterback. And they kind of knew Kraft was going inside. Now, the interesting thing, Spencer, if you go back and watch, and I did this a bunch, trying to figure this out, but you'll see Delpit actually communicate with Hickman right pre-snap. And he's basically saying, if he goes in, you got him. And that's what it kind of sold me on this like bracket banjo. So literally they kind of knew what was coming out of this trips formation against this down and distance. And they kind of robbed that second slant. So this is absolutely, sometimes you tip your cap to a defensive guy. Sometimes quarterbacks make terrible reads, the whole 9 yards. This one goes to Schwartz. This is a good play by This one goes to Schwartz. This looks like zero. This looks like man across the board. You would have no idea. They're showing a stack look, which looks like he's going to cover the back out. The Bush is going to blitz. So just incredible design, both pre-snap and both post-snap from Schwartz. This one's not on Love. This one, as a quarterback, there's interceptions, but you go back and you tip your cap because they showed you everything that was man coverage, and Delpit should be running with Kraft on the seam, and he robs the second slant. So well done by Schwartz.
Yeah, what I love about this too is we always so much try to focus on like who made the mistake when there's a big play that the defense gives up, or like when there's a miscommunication. And you talked about the communication between Delpit and Hickman, and it was, this was perfectly executed. They knew what they were doing. Hickman, to a T, sees the route, bails, gets that deep middle of the field or that deep section of the field, and then Delpit reads it perfectly and goes and makes a play. For as much as we try to pinpoint like who messed up, this is a perfect example of a perfectly executed play, and I think that's what's awesome about it. And to see it pay off the way that it did was phenomenal as well. We also know, Lance, we'll go to this next play as well. The Browns had a ton of sacks on Sunday. 6 different players were involved in sacks, including a couple guys that shared them. I know Malik Collins led the way with 1.5 sacks. He was great in this game. And this was one play specifically. I believe this was the Mason Graham half sack that he got, right? So
Correct.
sort of the stunt
Mason
that they
Graham,
ran
Malik
here.
Collins.
Okay. Well, yeah, break this one down for us as well.
All right, so if you start on the left side, I have an error with Myles Garrett rushing around the end. So first and foremost, this causes angst with the offensive line. They have to figure out how they're going to help with Myles Garrett. So you see the tight end, he's gonna chip him, right? And their teams aren't chipping very well on Myles. He's beating chips as well. So you see on the left side, you have the tight end, left tackle. They're gonna chip, and the tight end's gonna chip, and the left tackle is gonna kick and try to block Myles. Right. Then you have Mason Graham. Mason Graham is in a 3 technique. That's outside eye of the guard. I have it shaded. He'll be second on the loop. If you keep going down the line there, you have Malik Collins. He's in a 2-eye, which is the inside eye of the guard. Now, the person who makes this play is the right end 57, Isaiah McGuire. And here's why. As the ball is snapped, they're going to double Myles. Malik Collins is going to cross the center's face. So as he crosses the center's face, he goes first, and he's going to occupy the center and the left guard who has Mason Graham.
Isn't that a rule, by the way, if somebody crosses if the center gets his face, like he has to take the guy that crosses his face? Am I wrong about that? Okay.
Yep. No, he's got it. He'll immediately pick him up. And then at that right guard, who, where Malik Collins left from, he's expecting a twist. And I guarantee you that right guard said twist or whatever their tag word is, because obviously, like we always taught our linemen, if your guy is leaving, someone else is coming, right? If your guy is leaving, someone else is coming. Now, what Schwartz did, again, brilliant by Schwartz here, is that you see McGuire, the defensive end on that side, right? So what McGuire does, he starts out outside in a 5 technique, which is outside the tackle. He's actually going to rush the B gap. He's going to make the right guard and the right tackle block him. So as the play goes along, Malik Collins crosses the center's face. He takes the center and the left guard. Mason Graham will wait. As Mason Graham is going second, Isaiah McGuire is going to occupy both the right guard and the right tackle by attacking that B gap. There's no one left for Mason Graham. So you'll see on the video, you'll see on the clip, if you go back and watch, you'll see that there's no one left, right, as Mason Graham comes through. Again, a brilliant design. But if Isaiah McGuire goes outside and rushes outside like Myles did on the other side, that right guard will be there to pick him up. Because Schwartz on this scheme, he's going to occupy both the right guard and right tackle, and you can see it opens wide up. And these two inside, you can only do these twists if these are elite athletes inside. That's why it worked, because they're elite athletes, both of them.
Yeah, that's another really cool play, and you're right, the way that Schwartz sort of designed it, and it's interesting because, like, in that example, if the Packers had been running the football, McGuire's given up outside contain, but it didn't matter because one guy goes unblocked and he's able to get back there and make the play, Mason Graham. But yeah, just another really cool play on a day where the defensive line dominated and was able to consistently get in the backfield and make plays and make life hard for Jordan Love. I want to talk through a few other things from this game, Lance, including just, as a former coach yourself, how you sort of watched that final moment unfold with the kick going through the uprights and all that. And we'll talk through as well if the run game is here to stay and what it can do for the Browns offense and a few other things as well. Keep it locked. It's Spencer German. It's Lance Reisland with his weekly visit here on the Locked On Browns podcast. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than following an NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for however you like to bet. Maybe you're a prop bet person. You like to bet a player eclipsing a certain benchmark in a game, or you might want to combine that benchmark with a few other props, or even a money line to build a same game parlay, or you can just jump on a money line in real time as the action unfolds, whether it's for your team or against your team, whatever you want to do. The options are endless, and it makes every game, whether it's your team or not, feel more exciting, frankly. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Final part of the conversation here with Lance Reisland this week. Glad we get to talk about a win, Lance. And I guess one of the first things I want to ask you as a former coach yourself is I'm sure you've been part of plenty of sort of those end of game moments where you're trying to run a play, you're trying to set up for a field goal, you're trying to win the game in sort of a tense situation. Just what was it like watching that sort of unfold and how the Browns executed it so flawlessly to set Andre Schmidt up with the game-winning kick that he made? And also just how'd you feel about Andre Schmidt? Because a couple weeks ago, he was the reason the Browns lost, and special teams have been such a disaster for this team the first couple weeks. But to see him kind of complete that redemption story, I felt like was pretty cool. I imagine that you agreed on with that as well.
Well, when you watch, when you see Kevin Stefanski in the tunnel, you see him with you guys after the game. That emotion he had with a win like that, that's real emotion, and that was great. I think it was great for Kevin to get outside of his kind of normal MO because they have been struggling. Everybody's kind of been on the on edge, so that was real emotion. And I just was exhausted because I know how exhausted you are in those situations. I've had a couple game-winning field goals in overtime that are really they're incredible, and they're I remember like they're yesterday, and they were a long time ago. Andre Schmidt, you got to love him. So everybody's like, gosh, that is such pressure. I think he was over the pressure. Obviously, we've heard about some of his family issues that he's had and things he had to take care of. And but the idea that the week before against the Ravens, he was kicking for his job. So this week was easy. So it feels like he got into rhythm against the Ravens, and you saw the leg he has, and you saw, somebody asked me late last week, well, when they're evaluating these kickers, why don't they, Riz, you're there every day. I was like, listen, I've been there every day for 4 years. In the NFL, every kicker, every time you watch them, whoever they are, everybody makes every field goal from 50 yards, like all day. Like no one ever misses, they have to be in live action. But to see that kid make that play and to see his investment and how happy those guys were for him tells you he's a big part of the team. And I couldn't be happier for that kid after getting off to such a tough start. Karma, there's the word process is another word that is used a lot. And you just go back to work, and his process of staying with it, I thought he did a great job of owning it against the Bengals. He didn't run from it. He didn't make excuses, and he had some excuses in his life. I give him a lot of credit. I think when you make a kick like that, he's officially a part of this team, and sometimes it's hard for kickers to do that. So good for him. What a great moment, and forever a legend. It takes one, and good for him.
I think I thought that moment honestly summed up like why we love sports, right? Like it's bigger than like those moments, the redemption stories for a guy who obviously like one week he costs you a game, then he comes back out and wins you a game a couple weeks later. Those are the types of things that people cling to that make sports fun and make them so enjoyable. So I'm glad Browns fans got to experience that one. Certainly one of the more memorable wins ever in franchise history. I shared this stat earlier, Lance. The Browns became the sixth team since 2000 to win a game when they were shut out up until the 3:46 mark of the fourth quarter. Only 6 teams have done that. The record is like 6-2-23 when that happened. So pretty remarkable feat, all things considered. I want to ask you, Lance, because on the heels of talking about that being an emotional win, I always think it's interesting because coaches will always tell you, I'm sure you said this all the time when you were coaching, that, it doesn't matter what you did this week. Nobody cares what you did this week when you line up for next week. And so you kind of throw each week out and you treat it as like a 1-game season each and every single week. But at the same time, I also hear people talk about how one win can sometimes build into multiple and how this can kind of get the momentum going in the right direction. How much of that is true that like one win, especially an emotional one like this, can carry over to the next week and maybe spurn a little bit of a run here for the Browns?
Well, one thing is you just beat the Packers, right? They're arguably the best team. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. So that's the first thing you hang your hat on. Now, I will say this. It has absolutely nothing to help you with next Sunday, I don't believe. But what it really does when you talk about momentum, it's the little things. So you got up today, you weren't as sore. You got a smile on your face. You heard Batonio saying how he loves to play because he wanted to be out there for his teammates. Judkins is not as sore today, even though he carried the ball a bunch. You're in the hunt now. You're 1-2, but so not only are you feeling good, but practice is better. Your attention to detail is better. Your energy is better. Your passion, your sense of I have to do better, even because offensively you didn't do better. Now it's all positive because the offense can't play. They didn't play very well, but you won. right? Now, if they lose, then everybody's losing their mind, but you just, everything is positive because you won. And there's no such thing as a bad loss. So when you say momentum, for me, it's more about the week of practice. The week of practice, everything is easier. Everybody's up on time. Everybody's in meetings on time. Everybody's taking their notes, and you expect those pros to do that. But when you lose and you're 0-3, and the chance to make the playoffs are very, very limited, that's tough. Now you're in the hunt. You just beat a really good team. Everything is easier, including, as my dad always said, you get up and you're not quite as sore because you got the win.
Yeah, I like your thought process on that, and I this is why I enjoyed talking about this stuff with you, because as a former coach, you live this on a weekly basis, so you know how it goes. Different level, of course, but it still applies. Lance, we talked so much about Quinshon. We talked about how effective he was in the run game in this week against the Packers, and a couple of those big runs in particular. How much confidence do you have that what we saw this week is maybe just the beginning for him, and that run game can now become the strength of this offense the way that we thought it could? Like, what were the positive signs that you saw that this is maybe just the early stages of that, and the Browns maybe leaning on that even more as the season kind of progresses here?
Well, if I'm going to the offensive line room, I'm telling those guys they did a better job. Now, Livingston's a guy who struggles getting out of his stance and pass pro, but he's a pretty nasty guy in the run game. And he's a guy who likes to get physical. You can see that, and I'm trying to really break him down, and I'll do that later this week. But I think he's a guy who likes to be physical, and that'll help him in the run game. Now, they're going to have to help him in the pass game because sometimes he doesn't get out of his stance as he's kicking backwards. So, that'll improve as well. He's a talented guy, but those inside guys got tougher. They got back to what they were doing, hip to hip on the doubles. And then obviously losing Dwan Jones, Lucas has to play like the guy that when I broke him down with the Commanders, which was a very solid pickup. He's got to be like he was with the Commanders, and he wasn't like that the first 2 weeks. A little bit better this week, but not a ton better. So he's got to improve. Now, Judkins, what he does, he's going to give you all this. You said it best. He does a great job at the second level, and he's not Nick Chubb yet, but if you remember those long runs Nick Chubb would have, it didn't matter if they had 8-9 in the box. Chubb was in charge of those 8-9 guy by breaking tackles. Even on that 38-yard run, that safety came down. Judkins makes that one guy on the second level miss most of the time, either with a broken tackle or of his ability to make people miss or run them over. He can do all those things. Now, this run game is vital because, everybody talks about they have to hit some play action shot. They have to make some chunk plays. Those chunk plays for this offense are going to come off the run game. And what Judkins does for me is he gets me to 2nd and 6. And that's all I want, because at 2nd and 6, now they have to play base defense. If they can continue to run the ball and get tougher and tougher and tougher, those safeties will start to creep down the box. Now you can get a shot over top. Also, if you're running the ball well, now you're going to get more linebackers in the game. And I think your best matchups right now are Njoku and Fannin. It's not Jerry Jeudy. He's doing well, but your best matchups, if you want chunk plays, are Fannin and Njoku. And that's great off play action because they can run second level, the levels concept. They can run all 3 levels. And those guys, I still think Njoku's high level run after catch guy. So but all that starts with the run game, and Judkins gives them that. And like I said, he had a couple runs that there was nothing there, and it was 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 6. You can be successful there because now you dictate. And that's what balance is, Spencer. Everybody says balance 50-50. Balance to me is not 50-50. Balance is calling what I want to play on whatever down and distance I want, because I have confidence in the next down I can call whatever I want to. So that's what, if you can get to 2nd and 6, now you're in control as an offense coordinator. And if you look at that big call sheet Kevin has, we all had those big call sheets. When you're 2nd and 6, the whole thing is available to you. And that's important, especially when you're trying to take shot plays. And that's how shot plays come, because this is not a true drop back, 5 out kind of the offense. This is a marry the run with the pass, take some shots when they're there.
He's Lance Reisland, the best in the business when it comes to breaking down this stuff. At least in my humble opinion, I think so. And we enjoy these conversations every single week, man. I love that we're doing this. I hope the listeners get something out of this. And if you did like what you heard, Lance joins us every week during the season on Tuesdays. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and the Locked On Browns YouTube channel as well. For your second listen, you can check out Locked On NFL. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day. Tony Wiggins rounds it out with the barbershop, where he's got the smoothest breakdowns to end each day. You can find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, big thanks to my guy, Lance Reisland. He'll be back next week. hopefully we're talking about another Browns win. But in the meantime, thanks for stopping by. Keep it local as well. Check out Locked On Cavs and Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being in every day at the Locked On Podcast Network. Talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See ya.